All right, welcome everyone to a new deep dive.
Yes, welcome.
Today, we are taking a look at some new data on life expectancy in the U.S.
Yep, fresh off the press.
Exactly. I think it's really interesting timing too, right? I mean, we've just come out of a couple, tumultuous years, shall we say.
Turbulent times.
Turbulent times.
Yeah.
And so much of the conversation around life expectancy recently has really focused on the impacts of COVID and, everything that came along with it.
Yeah.
And so now that things are starting to, level out a bit.
Settle down.
Settle down, yeah.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating to take a look at where we're at now and kind of see what trends are emerging.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we're going to be talking about the pandemic's impact, can't not talk about that.
Right.
But there's some other really interesting things that I think we can find in this data.
Totally. So let's dive in.
Let's do it.
The first thing that jumped out at me is that after life expectancy took a dip, unsurprisingly, in 2020 and 2021, there was a significant rebound in 2022, which on the surface is good news, right? We like to see life expectancy going up.
Yes, definitely. The provisional data that we have puts the average life expectancy in the U.S. at 76.4 years in 2021.
Okay.
And that climbed back up to 77.2 in 2022.
Okay, so we're not talking a massive jump, but almost a full year.
Yeah.
That's going to count for something, right?
Yeah, that's a pretty substantial increase, yeah.
But I imagine it's not the same across the board.
No, you're right. There is some variation.
Okay.
So if we look at it by gender, for example, men saw their life expectancy fall to 73.5 years in 2021.
Okay.
And that rebounded to 74.8 in 2022.
Got it.
For women in that same period,
Yeah.
we saw 79.3 in 2021 up to 80.2 in 2022.
Okay, so for the men, it was both a sharper decline
Right.
and then a bigger jump back up.
Yep.
Which is interesting, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that begs the question of why, right? And
Yeah.
that's something that researchers are still really trying to tease out. But there are some prevailing theories, some potential factors that could be contributing.
Yeah, like what are some of the leading thoughts on that?
Well, one thing to consider is that men are more likely to be in jobs that put them at risk,
Uh-huh.
whether that's, more physically demanding jobs or jobs that expose them to hazardous materials.
Yeah, you think like construction, manufacturing.
Yeah, exactly.
More likely to be in those fields.
Right. And there's also the factor of healthcare-seeking behavior.
Okay.
Men are statistically less likely to go to the doctor for preventative care.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that makes sense anecdotally.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if there's any, hard data to support why, but that's certainly one of the factors.
It's a theory.
It's a theory that's out there.
Interesting.
So those things could be contributing to why men are seeing both a sharper decline and a bigger recovery.
Yeah, and, when we start to look at this data broken down by, ethnicity or race, things get even, I don't want to say more complicated, but there's even more variation there.
Absolutely.
Like it's really striking some of these numbers.
Right. Yeah, you see a huge range in how different groups experienced both the decline and the recovery.
Yeah.
So, for example, American Indian and Alaska Native populations,
Okay.
they were particularly hard hit during those, peak pandemic years.
Okay.
And their average life expectancy actually fell to 65.6 years in 2021.
Wow.
Which is, significantly lower than
Than the average.
the national average, yeah.
Yeah.
But then in 2022, it shot back up to 67.9.
Okay, so that's a 2.3-year increase.
Exactly.
Which is huge.
Yeah, that's almost double the overall rebound that we saw.
Yeah, wow, that is remarkable.
It is.
Okay, so what about other groups?
So Hispanic populations, they also saw a really strong rebound, an increase of 2.2 years.
Wow.
Bringing their average life expectancy up to 80 years in 2022.
Okay.
And then Black non-Hispanic populations gained 1.6 years, reaching 72.8, while white non-Hispanic populations had a more modest gain of 0.8 years, reaching 77.5.
Okay, so that's fascinating.
It is.
Like, what is it that might contribute to such a huge disparity in those numbers?
Well, a lot of experts believe that socioeconomic conditions play a really big role.
Okay.
Things like access to healthcare, the quality of housing, the types of jobs that are available in certain communities.
Right, and it's not just like current, like right now.
Exactly. No, we have to consider the historical context, too.
Yeah.
Generations of systemic disparities in education, healthcare, economic opportunity.
Yeah.
All of that creates this kind of ripple effect that we're still dealing with today.
Right, and I guess it makes you wonder, what can we learn from the groups that did see those big improvements? What are they doing differently?
Right. Are there strategies or approaches that we can adopt or adapt to help everyone achieve a longer, healthier life?
Yeah, that's a really good point.
So we've talked a lot about the pandemic's impact, and that was obviously a major factor in the decline in life expectancy, but it's important to remember that it's not the only factor at play.
Right.
So while the decrease in COVID deaths certainly contributed to the overall rebound in 2022,
Yeah.
the data also shows us decreases in deaths from other causes.
Okay, like what?
So we're seeing decreases in deaths from heart disease, accidents, cancer, and violence.
So it's not just that, okay, the pandemic is quote unquote over,
Right.
and so now everybody's living longer.
Yeah.
It's that there are other positive trends.
Exactly. Yeah, there are other things happening.
That's
They're
right.
contributing to this increase in life expectancy.
That's hopeful.
It is. It's hopeful. It suggests that public health initiatives, things like promoting healthy lifestyles, improving access to nutritious food, reducing environmental hazards,
Yeah.
those efforts are starting to make a real difference.
And those are all things that even if they don't, fully solve all the problems, they certainly can't hurt, right?
Exactly.
Those are all good things.
They're all positive steps
Yeah.
in the right direction.
So for our listeners out there who are, thinking, okay, this is all very interesting, but what does this mean for me?
Yeah.
What's the takeaway here?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that while overall life expectancy is an important metric,
Uh-huh.
it gives us a sort of big picture view.
Right.
Your individual choices, the choices that you make every day, and your access to quality health care.
Yeah.
Those are the things that have the most power.
So it's not just about, how long is the average person going to live? It's about, what can I do to make sure I'm living longer?
Exactly.
Okay.
You have a lot of control over your own health narrative.
Yeah, that's empowering.
It is empowering.
That's good.
It's not just, fate or chance.
Right. Oh, well, this is how long people in my family live, so that's how long I'm going to live.
Right. There are things you can do to kind of tip the scales in your favor.
To write your own story.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that.
So yeah, there are things to think about.
And I think that's a perfect place to leave it for today.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone, for taking a deep dive with us.
Yes, thank you.
We'll see you next time.
See you later.